Um, we are very pleased to welcome Dr. Christian Blochhoff. He is a specialist in the use of ICT in mathematics education, and he is also an enthusiastic tweeter and a regular blogger. Today he's going to show us some of the advantages and disadvantages of using Twitter in higher education. The questions and answers will be held at the end of the seminar. And just thanks for being here again and enjoy.
Thank you, Christina. It's the first time I'm actually doing a talk about Twitter. Normally I'm on Twitter and I keep on tweeting and actually thinking about what does Twitter give me, whether it's research-wise or teaching or preparation. It's actually quite a helpful experience to write it down. The drawback, of course, is that I've got lots of slides, lots of anecdotes, hopefully some good takeaway points, but I haven't timed it. So this is the first time I'm timing how long I can talk about Twitter or how short. So let's see how things go. And actually, it was interesting in preparing this that I immediately was confronted with sort of, you could say, a lecturing or teaching situation, and was thinking, okay, what am I going to talk about? And that actually, while preparing this situation, I was actually confronted with one of the affordances, which I will try to bring back to you later on. And it had to do with this article. I didn't know this article. I glanced over it, Times Higher Education. Professor Ross Edwards tweeted this article. Well, she very kindly tweeted only this part of the quote, and I read, well, digital demands, most prolific tweeter among UK Vice-Chancellors in an article about we should read more. The Montfort University has tweeted almost 40,000 times, which equates to about 600,000 words. And as I said, this tweet was not complete, so I was intrigued because this is the first reaction for most people. Couldn't you have written 5 or 3 articles during the time that you were actually tweeting, or couldn't you have done the whole science curriculum and completed that in exactly the same time that you used to tweet? And I also felt a little bit guilty, because if you look at my profile, and this prolific Vice-Chancellor has 40,000 tweets, I just went over 90,000, so how much other stuff could I have done here? So this was the original tweet by Professor Edwards, and I thought, wow, yeah, this is actually quite useful for my lecture. Maybe I can integrate it. And here you can see that I ask the source to get acquainted with where does it come from, and I then went on Times Higher Education. So already, in my view, you could see that someone else has an interesting resource or something that I thought this is relevant for my teaching practice, in this case this session. And I got a response from Ross Edwards, who's I think in social sciences, looked it up and integrated in this presentation. So, and actually this, I would say, I want to look at teaching and learning in a broader perspective. It's not, doesn't mean that you, for example, always have to use Twitter with students, but it can be broader than that, in preparing sessions, in finding resources, in doing some discussion, and basically have a community of interest of people, like-minded people, and profit from what they've already done. So my plan for today is to explore why Twitter might be useful in an academic environment. I'm going to, of course, say something about teaching and learning, but I do find it sometimes difficult to distinguish them. If I'm preparing a current issues in education module, which is an actual module that runs here, then actually knowing about current issues in education by following Dylan William or Professor X from this university over there is actually, of course, also preparing for teaching and learning. So I might ask you to do some stuff, but I did focus, I didn't know how many people would be here, of course, to just play along if you want to, join in if you want to, but I mainly will draw from my own examples and a couple of examples of actually some students here in the room as well. You know who you are. I think at least one of them. Because other academic units, of course, also do social media and work with digital tools. So if you have a device and you want to join in immediately, fine. I have added, well, and this I should have done a better layout with, TL Soton as the hashtag, and I will explain to people who don't know what a hashtag is what that means, but basically it means that I can collect all the tweets that have this hashtag in them, but I also emphasize that it's not necessarily a workshop, and then it should have been structured differently. It's a seminar, yeah, so here we are. And I'll also show you how these tweets can be collected in a teaching and learning capacity. So what are my assumptions while I'm talking to you? Some might already have a lot of experience with Twitter, but I'm starting with the basics. I couldn't assume that everyone already knew exactly how Twitter worked, etc., etc. So there will be one section where I explain a bit about that. So if you have, you might be leaving at the end with a feeling, oh, I already knew Twitter, so didn't learn anything. Sorry for that, but other people might have learned more. I tweet everything mixed up, so I don't have two different accounts. There is one Christian Bokhoven, University of Southampton, and there's one personal Christian Bokhoven. I use Facebook for all the personal stuff. But some people find this quite annoying. You will see some personal tweets, for example, and that's just the way how I use Twitter. I've already mentioned that there is a gray area between research and teaching and learning. I'm a lecturer, I also do some research, and I found it quite difficult to sometimes discern where the actual boundary was of my teaching and where does the research begin, because one feeds into the other and vice versa. Yeah, so again, that is an assumption. And hopefully I don't come over, although some people say 90,000 tweets, you must be an evangelist and want the whole world to use Twitter. No, I get quite a lot out of it, but I can actually understand pretty well why some people would not want to use Twitter. So hopefully I don't come over like an evangelist, but I do think that it's good to see if you can get something out of it or not. And that's of course your prerogative, that's your choice. Okay, just a little bit of my Twitter history. I'm on Twitter since 2009. I was the heaviest Twitter user. I was involved in local politics in the Netherlands. This is a sort of The Economist. As you can see, I was younger then. I already had some grey hairs. But as you can see, I was the most tweeting local politician. I was pretty proud of it. But then basically I got fed up with it because I was doing it so heavily. I felt as if I really was addicted even to tweeting. So I removed my account, completely destroyed it. That's why my profile now says 2010. And then I started to miss it. And then I made a new account in 2010. But I feel I can manage it much better now. But you might disagree with that. So I put this one in, not necessarily so you need to use a device, because actually I can do with a show of hands, and I put it in intentionally to show that you really need to think in what teaching and learning situation do you think this adds someone and what situation doesn't it. If you want, you can go to the URL and vote over there, but basically I can also just do this. Can I have a show of hands, people who have used Twitter before, who have actually tweeted themselves? And who out of those would call themselves, well, relatively heavy tweeters? Okay, so, and who has never used Twitter? So that should be the other part, hopefully. And from that group, who would like to use Twitter? And then the last one, of that group or other people, who fears that it might just cost too much time if you start using Twitter? Because that's what I hear most often. And actually I have this feeling once every month when I look back on what I tweeted, and as I said, a sort of feeling of guilt. What could I have done in the other time? But then I also think about the other stuff that it actually brought me, and I hope that that will give you an impression. Actually, I could have done this whole thing with Twitter and digital media, and I actually set everything up. So if for example, you were quick enough to read this URL and go to the poll, etc., you would actually see your answer appear here. And that, in short, it's broader, it's digital media, of course, it's not necessarily Twitter, but that already is one thing that you could do, of course, in lectures to make it slightly more interactive. Later on, I will show you that you can actually tweet to my account with A, B, C, D, or E. Maybe if you are a Twitter user, just do it for fun. Later on, this new graph will appear, and it should have changed because you've tweeted to me. But just as a small example of how you could actually do that. Okay, let me say a bit more about Twitter. This is my profile. So as you can see, this is the shameful 90,000. Then there Twitter, and there are some slides to consolidate this. This Twitter works in such a way that you follow certain people. Might be the ESTA account, but it might also be Professor Dylan William, because you think he has interesting things to say. So this is the following. I'm following 1,085 people. Most people keep this relatively low, because you can imagine the more people you follow, the more difficult it will be to actually take in everything. Then there's followers, so those are other people that are following you. So I think it's now 1,603, yay. So slightly more. I will say a bit more about likes, which actually, if you know Facebook, you know what likes are. This changed actually over time, the function of the likes. It used to be more a sort of favorites, your favorite tweets with interesting links. There was quite a lot of commotion about this. And there are also some lists, so you can keep lists. Very important element, of course, is my profile. When you use Twitter, it's important to be slightly quite informative. I find it quite difficult to actually fill in. So mine is actually not so very good. It does say that I'm here at the university and I like maths and TIMSS and PISA, but I also got so fed up with some pointless discussions I was having on Twitter that I added these very informative words. Moral compass, hence pedantic constable. Absurd, not much interesting to say. It's not very professional, of course, to add, but it does convey a little bit of my mindset. This is, again, I will go into a couple of these things, and as you can see, yay, I am here since May 2010. Not that that's important. Anyway, so let me say a little bit about what Twitter is. Basically, you might have heard some before. Social network, which allows users to exchange public messages of 140 characters or less, and they are known as tweets. 140 characters always surprises people. How can you say anything useful in 140 characters? Well, you can if you need to be concise, of course. And actually, I find the fact that they are limited in length, I like it, because I don't have time to read pages full of them. So I think it's actually quite useful that they are 140 characters. What can you actually put in these tweets? Well, they can just be text-based. So in this case, I put in a tweet that one of our PhD students, Mandy Lowe, is in the final of the 3-minute thesis competition. Maybe you've heard of this, maybe not. Now you certainly have heard of this, which is good, I said, and I want to promote this. I want to tell the world about this. So it can be a text-based tweet, and it can have some links. You can see this archaic @ sign. This is the name of the student in this case. She's also on Twitter, and her nickname, her handle, is CMML100, which of course is less, I would say, obvious that it's men below. C. Bokhoven might be a bit more obvious that it's me. There is only one, but you can imagine that some names are pretty difficult and you often get a number behind it. Tom Jones, there are probably 5,000 of them. You can add some pictures. I sourced these for my account just recently, as you can see, from April 17th. Some pictures about type 1 and type 2 error. I like this one actually. So if you do stats, I'm going to integrate this in my certainly in my stats classes about type 1 and type 2 errors. Some other pictures. This was at the AERA conference. Maybe I want to exchange the presentation that I'm giving. So at the end I will show you that I'll put these slides up on SlideShare, and then I can automatically tweet them so anyone can, and I put them on our blog, that sort of thing, so that you share stuff. And that in a sense also is teaching and learning, I would say, already. Disseminating stuff, getting stuff out to other people, whether it's the general public or students. You can use the same methodology. And then of course I also do the occasional blogs that I visit and I like. You can retweet them, and that means that you send them out again. So you read something and then you think, oh, I would like to say, oh yeah, I like this, or even say, I don't like this, this is just not true. You can add your own text to it, but you're sort of re-advertising a tweet there. If you want to do Twitter because it's the fashionable thing to do, sorry, you're a bit too late. Twitter is actually becoming less popular at the moment, especially the younger people are leaving Twitter by droves. They're going to Snapchat, they're going to all kinds of other tools. Twitter is going down, but I think from a professional CPD type point of view, actually it is increasing. Yeah? So really, I again emphasize that I wouldn't want to say, oh, it's all great, etc. Really, you need to decide whether it's something for you. Certainly not decide on everyone is doing it, or I was at a seminar and everyone was so enthusiastic, I'm doing it now because I need to. So I've already mentioned a couple of terms. I've mentioned that you send out tweets. This is the message of 140 characters. The people who see this tweet, some people forget this, are firstly your followers that happen to be online or that go online, but also anyone who happens to look at your profile. So I have seen a very big drama, you could say, of people who initially did not understand that and thought that only your followers were able to see this. Basically, anyone can see what you tweet unless you put a lock on your account. But you could argue, what's the point of putting a lock on your account if you're using social media? Some people do it temporarily when they get a lot of abuse or they get all kinds of spam stuff, etc. So they want to cordon it off. So those are the people, and then potentially the followers of anyone who retweets it. So if I do a very sophisticated tweet, doesn't happen often, but then someone can retweet it, and then those other people, the people that follow that person who has retweeted, can also see my tweet. And basically have forwarded it to someone else. See it as something like forwarding an email. You send it onward to other people. So that's exactly a retweet. In Twitter parlance, it's RT, retweet. When you retweet someone, it will appear in your timeline as if it were your own tweet, but it does say the original name, of course, so you're sort of sending it forward. Sometimes you add your own comment, or you can add your own comment. As I said, I like this very much, this is a great article, read it now, or I don't agree with this at all. And then your followers can see it. Normally, being retweeted is a good thing, because your ideas are sort of propagating through the network, other people are seeing them. But a lot of people also are a bit scared that when they retweet something because they find it interesting, but they haven't really necessarily read all of it. Let's say I tweet something and you as a colleague think, oh yeah, normally he tweets quite nicely, let's retweet it. That in their profile they say something like, retweets do not mean an endorsement. Just as a sort of disclaimer, some people retweet stuff and before you know it you've retweeted something from a Nazi criminal or something. That's not what you want, of course. So some people are quite cautious in that. You can reply to other people by using their @ before their handle. This is called a reply, of course, and that is a way to converse with people. It's actually very interesting to see that a lot of high-end, I would say, professors that normally would not be very accessible to you, that they are much easier to reach on Twitter, really. And at first you really think, yay, Dylan William gave me an answer. Normally you would not maybe think so, I don't know. I've mentioned his name now 3 times, I should stop doing that, sorry. Because I not always agree with him, to be honest. Your tweets will be seen by anyone, so don't forget that this reply is not private. Mistakes have happened there. People thinking that they did, they are not private, you can see all of them. And the person with whom you're conversing obviously can see them. And you can even do a dot in front of them, of the tweet, and then everyone, and it will be sent to everyone. Sometimes you want to show in your answer that to the whole world basically that you don't agree or you do agree. On Twitter you also see the use of hashtags, so they are used with hashtag in front, this symbol, and that's a way of bringing together a certain theme. So you saw in the beginning of this presentation TL Soton, that is my attempt that if you would want to tweet about this, that you then use that hashtag, and everyone does this, and then you actually can get some discussion going. Maybe not necessarily, often in conferences you just see not so much discussion, but just an overview of all kinds of pictures and images that have been taken during the conference, or if you're doing some teaching and learning stuff. I was at the ResearchEd conference, which is more focused on teaching and secondary education. Maybe you know about it. We also use the same hashtag, and that actually gives an even more vivid picture of the whole event, I would say. Don't have to do it during the event. Some people collect them afterwards, and then you can access afterwards all the resources. I will show you in a moment as well. I was wondering whether to do this live actually or not, and I realized that this is a bit more sort of this is more instructional and less exciting. So maybe I'll go to the live version in a moment. So if you want to tweet around a specific topic or a module, as you will see, I know that teaching living and learning on the web, the module that is given by Lisa Harris, and you are supporting them. That is UOS M 2008, and all the tweets around this module are collected if you click on that hashtag. So it's a way to organize stuff, label it in a certain way. You can also do direct messages. For that you need to follow the person you want to send the message, and that person needs to follow you. That makes it less appropriate for the high-end people that you would want to reach, because why would they be following you? You might be following them, but sometimes it does work quite nicely. There are likes, which again used to be a sort of favorite system, so that you, if you thought this tweet, I need to keep this somewhere safe because there's such a great link here, you could favorite it. It was a star actually, and now it has changed to a heart, and you wouldn't believe maybe that this was quite a shock for Twitter, that it went from I had my phone had the star, and I didn't update my application for a month, so I could keep on using the star because I preferred the favoriting rather than the liking, give it a heart, etc. And then you can also pin certain tweets at the top. So maybe in a teaching and learning setting, for example, you might have a page where all the resources are, and you can pin it at the top so that when students go to your profile, they would immediately see this. I have a much more relevant application for pinning a tweet, which is a scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, as you can see. And then the final things, sometimes discussions get out of hand, and then you can actually be blocked. There are only 2 people who have blocked me. I'll leave it up to you to find out who. And I haven't blocked anyone, by the way, because I don't believe in blocking. I just don't read it if I'm not interested. And that's my advice to you as well. Again, don't think up front, oh, it's going to take much time, etc., a lot of time, etc. You are the one in control of using your time, not someone else. No one can demand from you that you respond or that you do this. You decide this. But if you think, oh, it would be I would rather lose this person in my timeline, but I don't want to block, the current fashionable thing to do is to mute people, and basically that means they don't show up in your timeline, but they don't know that you have muted them. So they can keep on tweeting you, and you just don't read it. Yeah, that's the latest thing to do. For some people, by the way. So if you think, and I have read a lot of positive things, that if you are easily tempted by responding to certain people, by muting them, you get out of this predicament. Okay, so let's see, did someone, no one tweeted in this case. No, I put one in just especially to see that if you would tweet to Bookhoven.
So you need to explain exactly how to do it, because I thought I had done it.
So do you have? I'll just do this together with you then. Let's respond myself as well. So okay, I'm here on Twitter. What you need to do is let's see if I can actually do this. I will tweet under our and I will remove it again. Chair of our research center, I will remove this tweet, but just for teaching purposes I will abuse our MSHE Soton account, and I will send to me C. Bockhoven, so the @ means to C. Bockhoven, and I want to answer an A. Yeah? So if I go back to this, it's not true, but I want to answer A. So I do this, C. Bockhoven A.
Okay.
I tweeted you B, and it has
tweeted
you B.
Then I tweeted the whole sentence. Saying, well, because I'm a B moving to a D.
And now let's see. It should refresh automatically. Let's see if it did have some delay, unfortunately. Come on, yeah. Oh. Well, let me just say that what should happen, but that's the unfortunate thing when you do things live, that these are updated on the fly. So hopefully you can see that might be an alternative way of actually using a polling system. You could also go to this address, by the way, and choose there, and then within I like it if it's embedded in PowerPoint, because otherwise you just keep on switching between the presentation and other things. This is then updated within the application. I have no idea why now it's not showing up. Huh? I have refreshed it, yeah, but yeah, I have done that, yeah.
Do you need to come off full screen then?
I don't know. It's speculation, so I'll just leave it and maybe revisit towards the end when someone says, well, yeah, my question is, why does technology not work when you want it to? Well, how can I solve this problem? And then I will say, well, you can't. You need to be secure. Actually, there is a new function in Twitter, by the way, a poll function. So let me, if you've never seen it before, these were all screenshots, of course. Let me just go to live and fresh to my page, as you can see here. So this is my Twitter page. You can see all the tweets that I've done. So I got a nice tweet from Springer Education about philosophy and education things, and I find them really difficult, these philosophy and education papers, so I thought let's tweet about it. And you can actually, okay, let me just log into the account, but because apparently I have not yet done that. And you can sign up, of course, here as well with twitter.com/signup. I've already said most of these things. Oh, you can see that a tweet has come in from the mathematics, science, health, education. Someone is saying to me, "Hey, yeah, well, I know because I just sent it to myself." And now I can make a new tweet, and I can say, giving. Yeah, come on. It's a bit slow. Giving a seminar. You need to be careful with how you spell things because there are always people who will tell you when you make a mistake. Giving a seminar on using Twitter for teaching and learning. And I'll use a hashtag. Twitter teaching and learning. TL Yeah, and then I can tweet it. I could also make a poll. So basically do what I just, this is fairly new actually in Twitter. There was a lot of flurry, oh great, you can actually use Twitter itself. I think it's fairly limited, you can't add a lot of things to them. The other tools that exist are more versatile. You can add some pictures if you want. You can add your location. I never do that because you wouldn't want someone to see that when you're in here, I'm hard at work and then it says the Caribbean or something. You wouldn't want that, and you can add some pictures. If you include a video from YouTube, for example, you just copy paste the URL and it will embed it in the tweet. And if I now tweet it, it will appear not above this one because this one I pinned, so this one always appears at top. But as you can see, it now appears in my timeline, and it should appear in about 1,600 people are a bit more happy now because in their timeline they now know that I'm actually giving a seminar. Yeah? So that's that part. So this is what can be done with Twitter. One thing, and that's the last one, and then I come to the why and what can you actually do with this, but I think it's also important that if you've never seen Twitter, that you know a little bit. A recent addition, and maybe not even everyone who uses Twitter knows this, Twitter has acquired a company called TweetDeck, and I used to use TweetDeck a lot, which was an application that you could manage all kinds of timelines. This looks quite full and daunting, but basically what it does, if you look at the normal timeline, then what do you have? You have your own tweets, and then you can look at your followers, and what they are actually, or who you are following. So you can look at all kinds of people. You can imagine that because there's so much going on, it's sometimes difficult to manage all these different things. And I've always used a program called TweetDeck, and what it does is basically can have multiple columns. This left column are all the tweets of the people I follow. So this might be, I'm going to say the name again, Dylan William, Justin Dylan, just to also keep the science people happy. It might be the Times Higher Education, the Times Educational Supplement, all kinds of sources that can be very useful for me. Teaching and learning some research. Some are family or maybe people from the Netherlands that I want to keep in contact with. As I said, I don't really discriminate between job and personal stuff. I just put it all there. These are all their tweets. You can imagine that if you follow more than 1,000 people, that this is quite difficult to manage. Most people would probably do 500 or 600. Yeah? That sounds a lot. Depends a lot on how often they tweet. Lots of people, I think, mute me because I tweet too often and then it just goes too quickly. Fine, that's okay. So we see Janice has just tweeted me back, and Nick and Adrian, and I'm so popular. Because these are the mentions. So basically everyone that tweets something to me and uses my handle will appear here. So my handle, as you know, is @cbokhoven, and they appear here. All these tweets here
There are
all
the
have
ones
my
where
name.
we answered.
Oh yeah, I can see that now. So it should have been implemented. Let's have a look towards the end if it really did. There are likes. As I said, I did use them originally as favorites, but there are now thousands of them, and that's not very useful. So I think of Facebook. Most of you probably know Facebook. When you do a like, you're saying, "Oh yeah, I like this post." Basically the same thing. And as you can see, a mix of Dutch and English in this case. And then you can also add custom columns. There was a direct message, so these personal messages column here, but I removed it for the purposes of this seminar because I thought, well, it's no interest to you what my personal messages are. But I can also add information about certain hashtags, so maybe you know that there was a Westminster higher education forum just a couple of days ago, and they were talking about the Teaching Excellence Framework, and then this framework will judge all the teachers here in the room how good they are doing. And I'm interested in this aspect, so I could add a column with this particular hashtag. I could go here, add a column, and I can say, I can even do it easier. I can search for a certain hashtag, so I can now search for TL Soton. As you can see, I can search for this, and I'm thinking, so this is a fabulous hashtag, and I can add this as a column to my tweet deck. And as you can see now towards the right, I can now basically monitor what people have said around this. And for example, in a conference setting or a teaching and learning setting, I bet you have columns for the UOS, the module you're using Twitter in. This is actually very handy, because otherwise you'll keep on searching where everything is. I've got and I was looking for some tweets about ESTA I did for a while ago. Slides towards the end, the fun section. This is actually your module, which I added here as well. So TweetDeck is actually quite a nice, I'm not going to tell everything here, but it's quite a nice way to organize these tweets. Okay, but why would you actually want to use it? And as I said, I would say that reasons... Sorry? The reasons can be quite diverse, and I would say research and teaching and learning overlap a little bit there. So let's have a look. So one thing is to actually connect with peers. So when you're doing teaching and learning or research, and this is the reason why you could see a theme, I actually like a lot of his tweets. He tweets a lot of more professional stuff and not so many personal things. That's fine, but he always has some interesting articles about group-based childcare and child development, etc. So if I would be interested in childcare in early years, then I would might be interested in this. Or maybe if you're teaching a certain module about early years or in the PGCE, then actually staying up to date with all the current research or useful slides that someone has given that you know is an expert in the field. It's much quicker to actually get this stuff via Twitter than if you have to go out and search for it yourself. It's an easy way, I would say, to actually get this. So that's one, I would say, good thing. That's a bit the same here, a little bit more about sleep hours of an average sleepwalking through school, and how often do you read articles from March or April. Maybe you wait for an email that you get in, but this keeps up to date much easier. And I want to emphasize, this is not just for research, of course. This can also be at the teaching and learning front. A lot of stuff is going on for behavior management at the moment. There are all kinds of workload groups have just released their reports. If you want to stay up to date with those things, then of course there are web pages everywhere that you can visit, but you then have to go to your browser and then search for them. If you follow the right people, I can assure you that you will get them presented to you rather than that you have to flurry around. And even if on Twitter you have a question, just ask on Twitter. There even is a hashtag called Ask Twitter, and you will get an answer within, well, very quickly. I use it actually as also in a less kind way, in a non-teaching and learning way, if I'm not happy with the service as that is provided to me. Because if I phone them, I don't get an answer. If I tweet that I'm not happy with them, you will get immediately an answer. Yeah, so that's... and maybe sharing stuff, so teaching and learning resources or slides from a presentation is also much easier. This is again a bit more heavily skewed towards the research stuff, but I've got into contact with lots of teachers, Bruno Reddy from Times Tables Rockstars, for example, and the sort of Times Tables software that he has created, and sharing information about times tables and articles, etc., between teachers and between professionals is really pretty easy, I would say. And again, all kinds of other ways that you could do that as well, but to me it really is a quick way to actually get up to speed. And I would say that in lots of more politically inclined conversations I sometimes have with all of you, that hopefully you feel that I'm quite up to date with all these things that are happening. If you are interested in the more academic use of Twitter, there are some links here as well. And there also are some lists. So you saw in my profile lists. I can make lists, I don't make them very often, but luckily other people make lists with the top people for academia or for teaching and learning. I'll just leave it at this. So now we come to the learning and teaching aspect. And actually, when I was looking for Twitter and teaching and learning, the person that always came up, by the way, and I think the science people probably know his work, I would be surprised if not, but Simon Lancaster, a chemist, he keeps on tweeting all the time about this. About how could you actually use it for teaching and learning. Well, one way would be to use it as support within a module. So here we have stand up, yeah. So Lisa Harris, as I mentioned, Sarah, I had Nick does as well. You could use a hashtag to provide reading suggestions, interesting links. I think you evaluate blogs, for example, as well, and then you notify them, but I saw a lot of students as well. But from a privacy point of view, I thought you would be okay with doing this, but the student perhaps not, so I'm thinking ethically, hopefully, as well. Links to additional assignments, reminders about deadlines, etc. That could be a way to actually generate a community of interest, basically, of lots of students and people together within a module. And you can use the hashtag to actually make sure that they can be found back. Sometimes you even have a question and you want some anecdotes or something like that, or you need some sort of resource. That's another way to actually use Twitter. I really found, although the group that I encounter, of course, is a bit more research-minded, but I can see what other teachers post and what they ask. You see very large networks of teachers or PhD students. You've got something like PhD chat, and if you need something, when you use this hashtag within that community and you say, well, I'm looking for X, I've never seen no answer. There always will be an answer. Maybe if your question is very obscure, but with lots of resources and all kinds of questions and queries you have, you will get some answers that will bring you further. They will not do the work for you, of course, but they certainly will give you pointers that normally would give you a lot of time to actually find out. So from a prep point of view for your sessions, for your teaching and learning sessions, I think it's the first thing I do basically when I prepare. Isn't there someone out there who has already done something? And of course you can use Google and you can use search engines, but you can also look at communities of people who are already doing these types of things. And they are often very keen to share their stuff, because otherwise they wouldn't have put it on Twitter anyway. Make sure that you always reference the stuff that you use, of course, unless it specifically states, I don't need any credit for it, but it always says so. So you see a couple of links on previous slides where I'm trying to source or reference all the stuff. This is a very risky one. You could actually do, and I actually tried to do it now with Twitter and with response A/B, and that's why it's high risk, because it didn't show up, as you could see with Twitter. When you send the A's and B's and C's, it should update automatically. And I even checked before, but you all might have some examples where you checked the technology and it still didn't work while you were doing it. But that could actually be quite a quick way to do. Of course, there is a tension between the academic and the personal. You can't force students to get the Twitter account. At least I wouldn't want to do that. So it's more of an optional thing, or maybe even use different input ways. So they can use a laptop, or they can go to a website, or they could use Twitter if they have a Twitter account. And that will always be slightly difficult, of course, with a certain proprietary tool. Just like with demanding people to go onto Facebook is quite a difficult thing to do. Yeah? So keep that in mind. I would rather not see Twitter specifically as the one I'm promoting here, but in general, sort of alertness of how can you actually make lessons and your preparation more meaningful. Yeah? For study groups, again, you could say, well, that's them, not me as a teacher. But there were actually quite some useful, I've done a couple of MOOCs, so there are these massive online courses that are around on social network analysis and some other topics. And it was actually quite useful to use a certain hashtag. All the students who were doing this used this same hashtag, and you can actually use it for some quick questions. Does anyone, I don't understand this, does anyone have some further resources on this topic, because I didn't understand it. And then I got some responses to the actual people who were giving the course. Oh, I went continued. So that's another way. Oh, okay, sorry. So that's another, I would say, way that you can actually use this. Someone from York University has done quite a lot, so I've referenced the slides here. And he said, well, to bind things together, that could actually be another support unit. I personally don't have many students who use Twitter in, for example, the research methods module, so that makes it slightly more difficult. And I'm not saying force it on them, on students, but certainly it might be a good way to actually work with. So those are a couple of examples that you could actually integrate them. And some other things, and again, I understand that it's a sort of kaleidoscope almost, and maybe a bit too much in one go. There is an application that actually, and you might have seen it yourself at conferences, that can make a sort of an overview of all the tweets with a certain hashtag. Last week I made this just now because I was interested in NCTM, is the American Mathematics Teachers Association, at a big conference. Wanted to get an impression, what were they talking about? And with TweetBeam you can actually get a whole collage of the stuff that has been tweeted. And one of them that I immediately saw was this one, with all kinds of links. So just a very quick search and visually looking, this seemed appealing. I saw a couple of links in a very quickly. You can get quite a lot of interesting resources there, and then of course you need to follow up. It's not all gold, it's not a silver bullet, but it's certainly quicker, I would say, than Googling this, because this is a community of maths teachers, and I'm interested in maths teaching resources, so here you are. Another interesting thing is maybe you're interested in the relationships between people who are tweeting. That's one thing that I'm at least interested in. So I was tweeting about, as I said, the Westminster Higher Education Forum, because I'm fervently against the Teaching Excellence Framework. So here I said it, my political stance. And here you can see the people who are, at least on social media, on Twitter, are the most influential. Why am I showing this? This is a political discussion. But if you're, for example, talking about a PhD chat or there is a maths CPD chat, for example, if you put this hashtag in SocioViz, which is a website, socialviz.net, then actually you can get a picture of the key players and maybe follow those people because they are the most influential in this network. And that is an easy way to actually get more resources, etc., etc. So you're in command, think about it in that way. So here I said it, the PhD chat, math CPD chat could be one. If you like to give a running commentary on BBC Question Time, which I sometimes do, you can use that hashtag. I always do, because I get very annoyed with at least half of the people there. And you can get quite a lot of resources that way. And I understand it's a waterfall of all kinds of things, but I want you to at least know that it's possible, and then you go out to further explore. There is a very interesting website called If This Then That, ifttt.com, and you can actually connect Twitter to all kinds of other applications, even in your home. So theoretically, you could start the coffee machine by sending a tweet. You don't want that because then everyone else can send you a tweet and then you suddenly get 5 liters of coffee. But there are some very useful applications, especially with reminders, for example, for your own agenda, so that you get a direct message if there is a certain calendar item at a certain time. Or I blog, so I can link my blog with Twitter, and if I blog, a tweet is automatically sent. That sort of linkage between applications could also be quite useful. Just as for fun, if you want quick service, ESTA, when I call them, they never reply. But when I say not amused that ESTA did not deliver part of the grocery store, did not phone back, etc., I immediately got a reply, I'm sorry, Christian, etc. And the sort of a phone number to quickly get into contact. Yeah, I was quite annoyed that, do you have that as well, substitutions? We've got 7 people at home, so I don't want a substitution. If I order 8 burgers, I want 8 and not 4. So I wanted to get this out of my system while I was doing that. This slide actually had to be just before the other one. So you could also, if you want to, link Twitter even to some hardware. So that over the Christmas, you had a Christmas tree that you could actually tweet to and say red color lamps, etc. And I understand that's a bit strange. What does that have to do with teaching and learning? But there are a couple of examples that I gave earlier that are closer to this. And I sort of wanted to finish with and fun in general. You mentioned it as well. I think lots of people. I did away with the. I don't like that it's called shit. Academics say it feels as if, because this account is called that way. But I felt I had to censor the first word, and that's why I only. Come on. So I only have this account just for fun. I thought this was quite poignant because I indeed feel the same way when I get course evaluations and they say, well, genius, you rock, inspiration, and then there's one, you can be a jerk sometimes. That's the one that you take away when you actually go to bed. So what would be my takeaway points? So again, I don't want to be an evangelist. See if Twitter can be something for you. For me, it has. The first session, and then I removed my account, but I think I can handle it better now, although some people do think that the 90,000 tweets are a waste of time. I get a lot out of it. But this usefulness depends on what you want to get out of it. Don't do it just for the sake of innovation. Oh great, you can put it on your teaching and learning form, but because you can get something out of it. Sometimes you just don't know up front. I wouldn't believe people who say, oh, it costs so much time, etc. You are the one in control. If you're saying, oh, it costs too much time, then you are allowing it to cost so much time. You are really in control. And I do want to say that sometimes a show of hands is more efficient than actually using technology. And that's with that, although lots of people know me as someone who likes technology and uses it quite a lot, I think that should be your starting point. What is the most useful for my actual usage? When you do use Twitter, you could just, I know of a professor here who does use Twitter, but not to write himself, but he just follows a lot of people to get information, so you can just receive stuff. You can send stuff, a lot of stuff, or you can do both. Again, it sounds like an open door. Some people really think you must engage as much as possible, but that doesn't, you are in control here. You can do personal, professional, or both, which I do. Some people say use a separate account for professional stuff. I don't agree with that, but that's how I use it. Some people, and the last time I will mention Dylan William only tweets professionally. Fine, of course. I like it just to hear a little bit of the personal side. Don't forget that more and more people actually have devices on them, and I don't want them to take over their or my lives. But again, you are in control. That does make it very handy as a tool, much more handy than laptops, for example, that you need to organize and you need to wheel them in and you need the key, etc. Often these devices are already in the room. So I've never had problems when I asked, who can bring a device next week? I will bring laptops. If you haven't got a device, and in the first week I brought 5, and the second week I didn't need any of them because everyone just made sure they had their own device. So again, you are in control. Easy to look up content related to a subject, so for preparing, teaching and learning. When you follow the right people, you get a lot of interesting information very quickly. Engage in discussions. I like that, but sometimes I really don't like it and I really need to sit on my hands and not react. I find that difficult. I can see how you might be tempted sometimes and that might keep you away from Twitter. So, not for the faint-hearted. Only useful if you use it. You can do. I see a lot of people who have an account 2009, but then 3 tweets in the last. Well, it's never going to be useful if you use it that way, which is fine. But it's fine. Obviously, you need to use it. Tell people if you do tweet. It really helps if you advertise your handle. I've had quite a lot of invitations to talk or to do or just to discuss stuff, etc. Just because I'm on social media, and you can also link your Twitter to all kinds of other applications. So if you do use these other ones, maybe one central point where you can actually access all these other ones would actually be very useful. And now I would like to ask you: are you okay with me taking a picture of the room from here while you are waving? If you don't want, I won't tweet it actually. Or maybe I will. Thank you. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Christian, for a very fun and informative session. Please, any question?
Thank you very much, very interesting. From the educational perspective, as a tutor and expert in tweeting, what are the challenges that you can find as a tutor with all of the students that may happen, something like disorientation, distraction, or whatever? What are the challenges that may happen?
I would say the biggest one is actually this, as an aside, that one of the bottom slides I said that personal meets the professional. It is of course school basically, or it is academic, and lots of people use Twitter in a personal capacity. So the moments when I was trying to engage students, some people responded, oh yeah, I'm on Twitter all the time, etc., and they would use these hashtags, and they're all fine. But some students, at least some of my students, thought it was quite intrusive that I was asking them to use their sort of personal medium to actually do some schoolwork, because they didn't like it. I think the same happened actually with Facebook a little bit as well, with the maths stuff previously. Some like it, some don't like it. You actually use students. What is your...
Well, I was going to say, looking at the module that you mentioned, the OSM 2008, I sort of analysed quite a lot of the official feedback from that. And one of the comments, for example, that students really liked was that they could get quick replies from their tutors by using social media, by using Twitter. Obviously, if you're not able to reply, you don't have to as the tutor, but if you're able to send a quick reply, and a lot of it's around the technical side of the course, so it's like, you know, I heard that the room just changed, and they tweet it to you 10 minutes before the lecture, and you can tweet back, no, it's the same room as always.
Okay, so
they love
okay.
that. They love the communication that brings.
Okay, but then the challenge would indeed be that as a course tutor, you would have to be quite vigilant, and you are moderating a lot of this stuff, so you get quick responses. Well, and yeah. I know sometimes from students that let's say there is a difference between the minimum response time and the maximum response time with regard to tutors and students, and so I infer from that a quick response time in general probably is better than a long response time.
Certainly from what they were saying, yeah. And the other thing is that the way this particular module is organised, students are encouraged to, or they have to in fact, read and comment on other people's blogs. So the students can post up onto the hashtag, my blog is ready to read. And that advertises to the rest of the class that this is now something worth going and looking at.
Okay, so that's an affordance. Were there also challenges? Because so I think the personal versus that's the biggest one actually, and also that you can't force students to actually use it. So that makes it quite challenging. I would say that is the most challenging thing. But were there challenges that came from yours? Because you give plus affordances, but
Well, so Christian is my supervisor, and so we've had more than a few backwards and forwards on Twitter to do with all sorts of stuff, but also to do with my research. And actually, it's just it's another way of engaging with him on a completely different format, which works really well for both of us. And I like the fact that he is only a tweet away, and he, and there's also the director of the Web Science Institute, who some of you may know, there's Carl. You can't get hold of him for love or money, but if you tweet him at 3 o'clock in the morning, you sometimes get a response because that's where he is. So, there are other things, there are other advantages as well getting hold of him.
In terms of challenges, it remains the case that not everybody wants to engage with Twitter.
No, exactly.
So that remains the case, but that's a personal choice. We tend in the module to try and say, well, the more you give, the more you get, and that's kind of the principle we take in that. So if you don't want to give anything, if you don't want to engage, well, that's fine, but you're going to get back a lot less than if you do. We also run the module in Singapore, on the Singapore campus, and it's not, obviously Twitter is not a globally universal platform. There are other platforms in other parts of the world that do the same job. And so that can sometimes be a challenge. If someone's already quite active on, is it Weibo, the Chinese version, I think?
Yeah, Weibo.
So if someone's active on there, it may be an additional burden to ask them to become active on Twitter, for example. So there's aspects around that can be changed. But in all honesty, from the feedback we've had officially and through their own reflections on the module, no one has ever raised that as a problem. No one has ever said, I didn't like Twitter, I didn't like being able to communicate with my tutors via Twitter. we've never had that.
No, I would say that it's a little bit a self-select example, of course, but
The
anyway.
only kind
True.
of challenge that I may have is that I'm an ex-teacher, and I did put in the use the hashtag and said when I was a teacher I locked my account down. I'm talking secondary school teachers, so I didn't want students to be contacting me on Twitter. If at some point during my PhD I go back and do some supply teaching, I will have to carefully consider whether I'm going to continue to remain public or whether just doing, say, 1 day's teaching a day will be fine and that I can manage that. Certainly when I was full-time, my account was private.
So did you block them or did you mute them?
No, I was simply private, so you'd have to ask permission to be able to see my tweets. And if I got any requests from students, then I would always turn it down. In fact, most under 18s tend not to use Twitter very much anyway. They tend to be much more active on Facebook. And Facebook for me has always been a private friends and family thing.
Snapchat and Instagram now.
Yeah, and of course,
So I've been some people think I tweet everything, but I actually use a lot of self-censorship while I'm tweeting because you do really need to be aware of the fact that what you tweet, that everyone can see it, but also that it remains on there for the rest of your life, basically. Even when you remove the tweet, there will be some sort of website that has collected it at some point, and that will show it. But that holds for everything on the web, by the way. Bianco, you had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, you have more than 1,000 followers. Did you block anyone? You don't get the answer, or did you mute anyone?
No, I have basically I have a sort of personal rule. I don't block people and I don't mute people.
So if I follow you, don't
well, yeah, for 5 years yet. Yeah. I think now I'm going to be heckled. My first one will be in this room. I don't know. And because I feel that if I let my life be governed by people who are responding, I'm the one choosing to be emotional about it. Why do I need a sort of a technological mechanism to block them out? So it's more a philosophical stance, basically. And I of course say this to people who do block me, but there are only 2 people up until now. So that's not that much. And for unjust reasons, might I add. So, yeah.
I wonder if I might.
At the back.
There's just an interesting application that came, I think, as a response to this fine line between professional and personal. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called Visio.
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's actually, there's a study that I read about where the teacher, like your account, like all you need is just the hashtag and like a screen pretty much in the classroom, and then all the students can tweet all their questions without having their accounts public. So, and they don't need, there's no need to sign up actually for the service, but as a teacher, you just need to set it up first.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting to at least explore.
Tweet Visio, well, yeah.
Okay, sounds interesting to explore. And do you need still a Twitter account, but it's just anonymous, or don't you even need a Twitter account?
The students don't need to.
Okay.
You'll need that. I think as a teacher, you just need to set up a page or something like that.
So it's sort of almost an intermediary towards that might actually be interesting from this challenge that not everyone might want to engage. On the other hand, there are of course tools that do this, like Poll Everywhere, Socrative, that sort of stuff. So but it sounds interesting, and I get accounts for everything, and then I see if it works. And 90% I never use ever again, or I don't use, or use show of hands, and 10% turns out to be useful. So yeah, good one.
I think in relation to the challenges, something I found in my research about using Twitter for learning and teaching is that some students will fail to send the tweets appropriately. By this I mean they don't know where they should put the @sign, where they should put like the hashtag sign. For example, they put the name of the hashtag, then followed by the hashtag sign, and then they come to the class and say, we posted a lot and we didn't see any posts and things like this. So this is one of the things I noticed, especially with students who have never used Twitter before the class or before their course.
I often forget hashtags, for example. So BBC Question Time, I put a very good tweet about this politician I don't agree with, and then I forget the hashtag, and then I have to remove the old tweet and add the hashtag, etc., etc. So you're right. That in a sense also is the same problem. I forget to add something. One thing that I use quite a lot now is that in TweetDeck, for example, just to make, because I'm getting older and forgetful, so that when you have a certain hashtag, that I make sure that I'm basically looking only at those hashtags, and if you then do a tweet, it automatically adds the hashtag. So if you're only looking at that particular hashtag and then do a tweet, then it should automatically be correct, the syntax and the hashtag, and that works quite nicely. And then you can do quick tweets about that specific event. Shall we do the last one? I don't know, I'm looking at the chair.
So I was going to say,
it's already over time.
So it's a very good point you make about that, and that's one of the reasons why, alongside using these types of things, in my view, should also be accompanied some digital literacies development, so that the tools can be used by the students who lack those literacies currently. A good friend of mine, for example, said I need to remember how to use Skype again. You know, Skype keeps changing. But it's a good point. You know, you do need to have those literacies, and we as teachers should be teaching them effectively, or helping them to develop in the students through whichever way you find best.
Still, this is in its own is a challenge, because not every teacher will have enough time to teach the students how to use like the tool appropriately.
I guess it depends on a certain way of how you go about teaching it. I mean, you can argue that the student would learn through use, which, you know, I got it wrong this time, why I can't learn. But, you know, it depends how you want to do it. You know, I would argue that it's a valuable use of time, and perhaps more valuable than some other teaching activities. So if you have to try and make space in a crowded program, I would argue it's a space worth making. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put them on SlideShare. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, is it not?
Really, John. Really, very helpful. Okay. Yeah, we do need this kind of seminar.
Oh, it was fun to compile. I think it could go a bit too far, I think, in the preparation.
People still stay here over time. It's great. You also have a large audience.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, the picture will go in.
Thank you for organizing it.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, I hope it was
Really,
interesting.
really appreciate it.
Sorry?
Really appreciate it.
Yeah? I hope